more effort afoot to ensure the record is correct in terms of what transpired during the pandemic, as we continue to do damage assessments on a rolling basis, checking in from time to time. I know people probably want to just hurry past 2020 to 2023 and pretend like, hey, at least we got through it and things aren't so bad. You can't dwell on the past, of course, but it'd be nice to memorialize it properly so you don't repeat the same mistakes. In furtherance of that, Natalya Murakhver is co-founder of Restored Childhood. She's also the director of a film, 15 Days, The Real Story of America's Pandemic School Closures. 15 Days is the film, and focuses on the teachers' union role in school closures, which was pretty well established. We talked about it quite a bit. I mean, the director of the CDC was taking her cues from Randy Weingarten at the American Federation of Teachers in terms of policy as it pertains to school closures. That doesn't sound like somebody who is a woman of science. It sounds like somebody who's a woman of politics, as they both were. Natalya Murakhver, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me.
So 15 days, what's the basis of the title?
Well, they kept saying 15 days to slow the spread. We thought that schools were closing for 15 days, but we always knew that it was going to be far longer to reopen them.
Right. Yeah. So yes, 15 days to slow. Was it slow the spread? I can't even remember now. Slow the spread, stop the spread, bend the curve, or was that David Beckham? I can't remember. But yeah.
Yes. Flatten the curve. 15
flatten
days
the curve.
Flatten the curve. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, so many. I think the film shows how synchronized the propaganda was across many different media channels about this.
Yeah, I mean, I've even forgotten some of the sloganeering. I guess I have to go reprogram myself. I am standing in my idiot circle, though, at present, just out of an abundance of caution. I remember that one.
Yes.
So give us sort of the fresh perspective or the details here with respect to school closures that you want to make sure are not lost in the annals of history with respect to how this went down.
Sure. I think some people still believe we did the best we could with the information we had. But I think what our film does most strongly is show that the information was always there. Other countries, Scandinavian countries, most of Europe, states like Florida and other red states reopened schools without any excess deaths. So it was never necessary to keep schools closed beyond the initial few weeks, or even, I'll give them the spring of 2020. That's, that was excessive too, because in the Scandinavian countries, schools reopened much quicker. But into the 2020-2021 school year, all the information was known. Scientists like Jay Bhattacharya, Martin Kulldorff, Sunetra Gupta from Stanford, Harvard, and Oxford came forward with the Great Barrington Declaration, which was immediately signed by thousands of doctors around the country and around the world. And what that declaration called for was really for a revert to the actual pandemic plan, the pandemic playbook, which actually did exist. And that was focused protection. You protect the elderly. You let the youth who are not vulnerable to this go back to normal as quickly as possible, because they suffer from the isolation and the masking and all of these supposedly protective non-pharmaceutical interventions, NPIs, which we heard over and over again back then, that are supposed to protect people. They do not protect the youth. Once the youth miss their developmental milestones, whether it's learning how to read or hanging out with their friends or, playing sports and being mentored by their coaches, those milestones are not regainable. And I think we're seeing the fallout of that now. The teachers' unions saw the children and our schools as collateral damage. They held them hostage. They closed our schools, pretended like they were their schools, and then they waited and extorted the federal government for a huge bailout in order to reopen our schools, $189.5 billion over the course of the end of the Trump administration and into the early Biden administration to reopen the schools.
Yeah, but it was great here in Cook County. We were able to launch a universal basic income pilot program that's now permanent. So, the positives from it, according to the tax eaters here. Anyway, Stephanie Edmonds is a former New York City teacher who co-produced this film with you. I wonder what is her perspective? Has anything changed inside the New York City public schools as a result of what went down and what we now understand to be true, or is there very little understanding of what we know to be true within those institutions? And at some point, if something like this occurs again, we'll see all the same mistakes repeated.
Oh, well, Stephanie's an interesting story because Stephanie was a high school history teacher in the Bronx, and she lost her job because she refused the COVID vaccine mandate that they had for New York City Department of Education teachers. The union did not fight for her, and so she's no longer in the public school system. She works at a small farm school in Connecticut. She's actually far happier. But in terms of what happens inside the public school system, I can answer that. That money was used to erode learning standards, to bring in more unqualified, young, indoctrinated teachers from the schools of education. We also started to really push in social emotional learning, which I think we all know by now is extraordinarily detrimental to young people because it creates this victimizer paradigm. They feel like they're always not well and they always need help, and they're victims. They're not capable of taking charge of their destiny. It's a terrible thing. Abigail Schreier has written extensively about this in her book, Bad Therapy. But anyway, so that's they ushered in a social justice agenda into schools very rapidly and eroded learning standards. And now I just saw an article the other day that even students at UCSD, San Diego, one of the best schools in the country, can't do basic math.
Yeah, no, we talked about that quite a bit. I mean, and that's everywhere. But so the teachers union, like the relationship between Randy Weingarten and Rochelle Walensky, the CDC director at the time, who deferred to Randy Weingarten on the opening of schools, or the continued closure of schools, more to the point. So, I mean, what is your take? Were they just using this as an opportunity? Did they really not understand what was going on, and they were just maximizing this opportunity, as you described, for the cash and prizes and the additional staff and serving their membership at the expense of the kids? Or did they perfectly understand that this was unnecessary, but it was a great opportunity? It's sort of like what did I mean, especially Rochelle Walensky, since she's supposed to be some sort of public health expert. I mean, what did they really understand, and where does the politics come in between what they understand to be true and what they want to accomplish in this moment?
That's a great question. Rochelle Walensky was a parent in a Tony suburb of Boston prior to taking the CDC role, and there's documentation of her advocating at her school board for more lax COVID restrictions. I think she said that 6 feet of distancing was unnecessary and that 3 feet was more than sufficient. This is all documented. So I think Rochelle Walensky understood very well, and her position was a politically appointed position. I think it was absolute dereliction of duty and a really a takeover of that institution, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, all of them. The teachers' unions were controlling them, and in a congressional testimony, which actually Stephanie and I attended, that Randy Weingarten had to testify about whether she had Rochelle Walensky's phone number and was coordinating with her. She didn't want to answer that question, but she did, and the answer was yes. I do have Rochelle Walensky's phone number. Now, Debbie Lesko, who I believe was a doctor and was one of the representatives who was questioning her, was saying, wow, I'm on the medical committee here, and I don't have Rochelle Walensky's phone number. Why do you? So there's a tremendous level of coordination. I would also point out that I don't think that the teachers' unions serve the teachers. I think that's a misunderstanding of what the teachers' unions do. They do not represent the interests of the teachers. There's been research done since the school closures, that the teachers who went back to teaching actually are healthier, happier. As you know, living in your apartment in your pajamas for 2 years, doing Zoom calls is not really a good, healthy, productive life. And the people who went back to their kids, because that's why they're teachers, right? They want to be with their kids. They got, much better results, health-wise, happy-wise, et cetera. But I think
that may be true, but I don't see any revolt afoot among the teachers' unions against the leadership for the choices that they made, which, frankly, most of the teachers supported in the first place. So they may be acting averse to their interests. They may be acting, borderline irrationally, other than not having to work, I guess, is a rational choice and still get paid. But at least it's following the incentives. But it's not like that. The rank and file membership of the AFT or the New York Teachers Union or the Chicago Public School Teachers Union, CTU, it's not like they're revolting against their leadership for shutting down the schools.
No, of course not. And I'm not saying that they actively wanted to reopen schools. But what I am saying is that Randy Weingarten and Becky Pringle acted like ventriloquists. They created narratives that they then fed to the rank and file teachers, and they told them, they said, hey, teachers, you are not safe. You're going to go back to those buildings, and you're going to die in those buildings because you know what? Trump is president, and we have not secured those buildings. You are going to die. And you know what they did next? They went to the black and brown community and said, your children are not safe in those schools. If they go back, they're going to die. And so what happened was the teacher said, we're not going back. We won't die for the DOE. And Randy Weingarten said, look, the teachers don't want to die. They don't want to go back to school. We have to keep them closed. And then they went to the black community, and the black community said, we're not going to send our kids back. We don't want them to die. And they said, look, it's white supremacy to want to reopen schools. The black community doesn't want to. So it's only white people who want to reopen schools. So you're white supremacists, so we have to keep them equitable, so we have to keep them closed.
And who... what percentage of the people that were fed that line and participated in that hoax know they were scammed, or will acknowledge they were scammed? I wish I knew the answer to that. Yeah, right. I mean,
probably very few.
Yeah, I mean, my point is to say, I know this is an effort to prevent this from happening again the next time there's some sort of viral outbreak, but it seems to me that at least in big city America and these big government school systems or the big teachers unions, I mean, they'll do it all again if they have a chance. They won't change a thing.
Oh, I mean, they're doing it now. It doesn't have to be like a big school closure with a capital S, capital C. They're cutting back on hours. They say four-day-a-week school is enough because parents and teachers and students are tired. It's too much time. They're cutting back on educational standards. They are. There's so many things that the teachers unions are doing. They're pushing community schools, which have medical centers and medicalized kids without parental permission.
Yeah, we know that.
I mean, yeah. You should look up community schools. It's a big push by the teachers unions because guess what? The teachers unions don't just represent teachers. This is something I learned during the pandemic. They also represent healthcare workers, and they also represent many retirees. So they're trying to make sure that their retirement plans are loaded with lots of cash, So it's a mistake to think that the teachers are really their customers. They're their product.
Yeah, no question about that. Natalya Murakhver, she is the co-founder of Restore Childhood and the director of the film 15 Days, the real story of America's pandemic school closures. Natalya, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the film. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan. It was great to talk to you.
You too. And Natalya, join us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
You stink.
I think you're going to have a good Christmas, all right?
You smell like beef and cheese. You don't smell like Santa.
On AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing